も一緒に日本語を勉強しましょう。Let's talk about that very useful word, しましょう. When you want to say, let's do something, the word します becomes しましょう. For example, for hiking, you can say, ハイキングをしましょう. For skiing, you can say, スキーをしましょう. For studying, you can say, 勉強しましょう. And you can use ましょう with any verb. So in this lesson, you're going to learn to make polite suggestions using verbs you know, so you can plan and do something fun with your Japanese-speaking friends. 頑張りましょう or let's work hard. So, in this lesson, you're learning a new verb ending, ましょう. It's called the polite volitional form. This is quite regular and easy once you have learned how to get the must form for any of the Japanese verbs. Simply use the verb ending ましょう instead of ます. For example, 食べます becomes 食べましょう. 行きます becomes 行きましょう. So, this is a good time to review the polite present affirmative formation for all types of verbs. With the る verbs, you drop the る ending. The form that is left behind is called the verb stem. For the two irregular verbs, the verb stem is different from the dictionary form. 来る has the verb stem き, する has the verb stem し. Then, you replace the ending る with ます. Or, what we're now learning, you can attach the new ending ましょう to the verb stem. This makes the suggestion starting with let's. 食べる食べます食べましょうするしますしましょう来る来ます来ましょう The う verbs need an extra step to get the verb stems. You remove the ending う and attach い and that's the verb stem. And then the rest is the same. 行く行きます行きましょう Let's do some more examples with ましょう How about 買う to buy? The polite form is 買います So, let's buy is 買いましょう We can attach これを at the beginning to mean let's buy this. これを買いましょう How about 急ぐ to hurry? How do we say let's hurry? 急ぎましょう We can attach ちょっと to mean let's hurry up a little or let's go a little faster. ちょっと急ぎましょう How about using 飲む to say let's drink? 飲みましょう We can also say let's drink together by attaching 一緒に at the beginning. 一緒に飲みましょう How about the verb 待つ to wait? The sound of the polite form changes a little to 待ちます So let's wait is 待ちましょう So how would you say let's wait here? ここで待ちましょう How about let's wait over there? あそこで待ちましょう There are some う verbs that end in る This means the る changes to り like わかる changes to わかります To take a new example, 入る means to enter or to go in. So the polite must form is 入ります So how do you say let's go in the store? Please start with 店に into the store. 店に入りましょう. You can also use ましょう with the question ending か attached to it. ましょうか is often translated as shall we? 映画を見ましょうか? はい、そうしましょう. Interestingly, the Japanese word so, as in そうしましょう, is almost exactly the same as the English word so, as in let's do so. Let's compare this question with a similar question using ませんか introduced in lesson 5. コーヒーを飲みませんか? That's an invitation that asks for the listener's preference. On the other hand, the proposal with ましょうか shows the speaker's own volition and involvement. コーヒーを飲みましょうか? In fact, it may work better if you first make an invitation asking about the listener's preference with ませんか? Then once the listener accepts the invitation, either the speaker can suggest detailed plans about what to do together using ましょうか? 明日一緒に出かけませんか? いいですね。どこに行きましょうか? There's also a more tricky sounding use of ましょうか. This is when the speaker volunteers to do something for others. In this case, ましょう means shall I do or let me do something. If the sentence is more explicit, the subject might be marked with the particle が. For example, suppose it's time to pay for something. 払う means to pay. 払う. So, I could offer to pay by saying, 私が払いましょうか? But sometimes, 私が is supposed to be understood and may not be said. 払いましょうか? In that case, the context is supposed to tell you whether 払いましょう means let's pay or let me pay. For example, someone saying let me pay may already be reaching for the check. Also, you may hear the difference in the intonation. When you volunteer doing something with ましょうか, you should use the rising intonation as opposed to the falling intonation heard in the suggesting question with the same ending. 私が払いましょうか? 払いましょうか? Similarly, you could use ましょうか to say, why don't I make the meal, where the word for meal is ご飯. 私がご飯を作りましょうか? 作る. 作る is an u verb which means to make. Notice that ご飯 is a polite way of saying the food rice, but it's also the way to say an entire meal. ご飯. In fact, the words for breakfast, lunch, and dinner are each a time of day word plus ご飯. 朝ごはん, 昼ごはん, 晩ごはん. 朝 is morning, 昼 is noon, and or daytime. 晩 is evening, as you may remember from the phrase こんばんは used for good evening. Speaking of the word 面白い, which means interesting, let's look at the adjectives again. In the previous lesson, you learned that there are two types of adjectives in Japanese. Those that end in i, like 面白い, and those that can end in na, like 元気. These two groups are called i adjectives and na adjectives, respectively. When you remove the E ending from the E adjectives and na ending from the na adjectives, what you have left is the adjective stems. So, with the E adjective 面白い, the part without the final E is the stem 面白. And with the na adjective 大変な or tough, the part without the na is the stem 大変. The reason I'm telling you about the adjective stems here is that there's a phrase you can use with them that should be quite useful to you. It is adjective stem そうです. It means something or someone looks, appears, or sounds whatever the adjective describes. おいしそう. So you can say, おいしそうですね. Or you can be more specific about what looks delicious. この天ぷらはおいしそうですね. その仕事は大変そうです. So, how do you say, grandmother looks healthy? Use the word おばあさん for grandmother or any old lady, and 元気な for healthy and energetic. おばあさんは元気そうです. Let's try a sentence saying the kanji looks difficult. The word for difficult is 難しい. 漢字は難しそうです. You can negate those sentences with じゃありません or じゃないです. その仕事は大変そうじゃありません. 漢字は難しそうじゃないです. Please note that かわいそうです does not mean looks cute. Instead, it means someone is pitiful or I feel sorry for someone. かわいそうな is a na adjective. あの犬はかわいそうです. 犬 is the word for dog. The word for cat is 猫. Animal names may be written in kanji or katakana or hiragana. 犬 猫 かわいそうな猫がいます. Now it's time to listen to the dialogue. ダイアログを聞きましょう. The Japanese couple Madoka and Hiroto are talking with their American friend Greg, asking whether he's busy, 忙しい, or is free, 暇, so they can go enjoy flowers together. When cherry blossoms bloom in spring, Japanese people love to go have a party or picnic called hanami. You can attach the polite prefix o. 日本人は春にお花見をします. 花見 People gather in groups, small or large, and enjoy the beautiful cherry blossoms as well as food and drink and the company of friends and family. とても楽しそうですよね. When the three of them get together at a nearby park, which is 近くの公園, they start their picnic. Greg compliments on the food in the bento box. He says, 豪華な弁当ですね. 豪華な is an adjective that means extravagant or fancy or great looking or expensive looking. 豪華な Let's listen. ねえ、グレッグさん。明日は忙しいですか？
いいえ、暇ですよ。
それじゃあ、私たちと一緒にお花見をしませんか？
あ、いいですね。場所はどこですか？近くの公園に行きましょう。お弁当は僕たちが持って行きます。それじゃあ、僕が飲み物を持って行きましょうか。あ、いいですか？それじゃあ、お願いします。
On Saturday, the group of friends gather at the big park.
うわー、豪華なお弁当ですね。美味しそうです。桜の花もとても綺麗ですね。それじゃあ食べましょうか。いただきます。
まず乾杯しましょうよ。
はい、じゃあ乾杯。乾杯。
By the way, 乾杯 is said together at the very beginning of drinking any alcoholic beverage. The literal meaning of 乾杯 is dry cup, which is why it's common to consume the entire drink right away. You may have heard the Japanese people's love for Sakura. When cherry trees bloom, they are so gorgeous. Sakura wa totemo kirei desu yo ne. But sadly, the height of its beauty lasts only for a few days. This fleeting beauty is often compared to our own youthful days or our life in general. So, cherry blossoms evoke different emotions in many people, and it has been a favorite theme in poems and songs for more than 1,000 years. 日本人は昔から桜がとても好きです。About 10 wild varieties of Japanese cherry blossoms are known today, but there have been more than 200 varieties produced by crossbreeding. すごいですよね. How impressive! A cherry blossom has long been a favorite feature often seen in art and clothing and even traditional tattoos. 皆さんのうちにも桜がありますか? Now, I'd like to teach you a traditional Japanese song about cherry blossom. 日本の歌を歌いましょう. Let's sing a Japanese song. 歌の名前は桜です. It's also called Sakura Sakura. There are two versions, one with the lyrics from 1941 and the other older version from the 1800s. Here, let me sing the older version for you. 古いのを歌います. Feel free to sing along. それでは私が歌います。桜、桜、弥生の空は見渡す限り霞か雲か匂い添いするいさや見にゆかん Now, why don't you play it again and try to sing it with me? どうでしたか? 綺麗な歌ですよね. Isn't it a beautiful song? Now that you have learned all the hiragana, let's look at a few simple Chinese characters known as kanji. There's a definite way to write each of the characters called the stroke orders. An important general rule to remember when writing characters is that horizontal lines must be drawn from left to right. You have already seen this in lesson 1, but here they are the numbers 1 to 5 in kanji. 1, 2, 3. The first three are horizontal lines, but in order to write them beautifully, you should not just write straight lines. You should also pay attention to the line length. top lines and middle lines are shorter than the bottom lines. In addition to writing horizontal lines left to right, a second rule is that vertical lines are written from top to bottom. The number 4 appears to have 2 vertical lines and 2 horizontal lines with 2 curved shapes inside. But here is the stroke order. You start with the left vertical line. Then you draw the top horizontal line and the right vertical line in a single stroke. Not 2 strokes, just one continuous stroke that turns the corner and continues downward. Then you make the 2 inside strokes. And finally, close it up with the bottom horizontal line. This character must be drawn in 5 strokes. For a more aesthetically pleasing look in your handwriting, you should not draw a perfect rectangle. The bottom line should be slightly shorter than the top stroke. 5. The character for 5 starts with the shorter top horizontal line. Then you draw the long diagonal line. The third stroke starts horizontally and then goes down. The fourth and final stroke should be the longest. The next character is yama, which means mountain. Yama. Can you tell it probably came from the pictogram of mountains? This is a 3-stroke character that starts with the middle vertical line. The left line and the bottom horizontal line are drawn in 1 stroke. The character has the on reading san, as in Fuji-san, and many other mountain names. Fuji-san. Kawa. The river character also has 3 strokes, starting with the left one, slightly moving towards left at the end. Now, here's something you have already learned. Remember the kanji for Nihon? When I showed you the character for hon, I mentioned that you need to add 1 stroke to the tree character, so you already know how to write it. Ki. It comes from the pictogram of a tree with branches and roots. What's interesting about this character is that when you combine 2 of them, we get a new character. In Japanese, it reads hayashi. That means woods or small forest. Hayashi. Now, when you combine 3 of them, you get a bigger forest. Mori. Here's the kanji for a familiar word, watashi. Watashi. This kanji can be divided into 2 parts, a part on the left with 5 strokes and a part on the right with 2 strokes. The part on the left is what you draw first. Whenever a character can be divided into a left side and a right side, you always start with the left side and complete it before moving on to the part on the right. For the first stroke, we start at the highest point and go down. We are seeing a little more complex characters now. You have probably noticed that some characters are made up of 2 or 3 different parts. Those parts are called components, and some of them can stand on its own as characters. Components will often give us clues on what kind of meaning or sound the character may have. The main component is called the radical, which every character is indexed under. So when you look up a kanji in a dictionary, you start looking among characters sharing the same radical. In the case of kanji for watashi, the main radical is the component on the left. It is the grain radical representing a plant stalk. The right side component has a meaning also which represents self or private. But it also affected the pronunciation of the entire character as well. So, the kanji for watashi represents private grain or field. This character indeed means private as well. どうですか？皆さん、ひらがなと漢字は楽しいですか？たくさん書きましょうね。それでは、また次回も会いましょう。See you again next time!